Welcome to another edition of Working with Gen Z. Friends, for many years, we've seen that a degree from college was always seen as a signal of capability, something that we've used in the past as a proven path, and perhaps in your career, that was your ticket of how you may rise into an organization. However, things seem to be changing when we see AI has entered the workplace and so many geopolitical shifts that are happening outside, which are forcing companies to rethink their models, business models, and also the way in which talent shows up. And at a time in which where we are seeing that the skills are changing faster than the curriculum inside the classroom, what does this mean for the person who's entering the workforce? Do degrees still have a place in their working career? Are employers looking for portfolios? Are employers are still kind of respecting the degree on the paper? It's a very delicate tension, and we'll kind of find out that what is it, where is the shift going, and what does that mean for the Gen Z who's entering the workforce? And to help us with that is just the perfect guest. I'm very delighted to have Manisha Goel. Manisha, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Hey, hi, Nikhil. A very good afternoon. And good to be back at the show after 3 years. Yeah, very excited.
Absolutely. I'm very happy. We're doing one more very strong episode. I think our past episode of reverse mentoring has been something that a lot of people have listened to, have spoken about, have recommended very highly, and it comes up. So today, let's talk about one more episode, which we think is very sort of in current sort of the job place, the job market, where we see the what is happening. So let's kind of unpack some of this. But before we do that, as always, I will request our guest and I'll request you, Manisha, to take a few minutes, tell us a little bit about your career, your work, and what is it that you're doing now.
Sure. Thanks, Nikhil. So this is Manisha. I'm a co-founder at Pennyval. I'm also a proud parent of a teenager. So which means that, I see the future of work both from as a leader as well as a mom. During my 2 decades of experience, I had the opportunity to work across a lot of organization transformation. So, like shaping talent, performance, and reward strategies across Honeywell, including leading the HR at Honeywell Technology Solutions. And throughout my corporate journey, that certain things were very visible. That the challenge was not the talent, the challenge was the visibility of the talent. Skill do exist in the system, but it's just that the system does not, you do not have enough system to understand the visibility of the skills. There would be career pathways, but the growth exact would be not be visible to all employees. And in fact, some of these insights really helped me to architect one of our flagship product at Benevol also, which is a real-time skill transformation engine, where organization can define, they can assess, they can build, they model their workforce, and kind of align to their business strategy. And I would say, Nikhil, that in the current generation, the way the world is changing, the world of AI, this has become very relevant and very urgent for an organization. So I'm excited today to talk about that. How does this impact to the Generation Z and how skills are becoming the real currency of the future?
Fantastic. No, absolutely. Let's dive in. We will talk more on what you just mentioned, the tool that you're working perhaps later in the show. Let's just start, Manisha. We've all seen the generative AI and agentic AI now has entered the workplace in such a rapid pace. And, there is the very wide spectrum of debate of, okay, what it can do to sort of all the workforce, which is that, okay, will it replace jobs, certainly from experienced people to the younger workforce? So, what are you seeing first? And then when you think about the Gen Z, who is relatively the eldest of the Gen Z, is about 28, 29, which means about four
Mhm.
more years of experience. When you see AI entering in the workforce, what patterns are you seeing and what does that mean for the Gen Z?
See, if I see from the lens of a Gen Z, right, for them, the change is very rapid. Like, it's like, whatever I'm doing currently or whatever I'm studying may not be relevant for 5 years. Okay, I think so. This generation is going through that transformation. And you take up any field, right, from that perspective, be it a marketing, be it a finance, be it a software, everywhere, you would have AI, which is taking kind of lot of work in every other fields. But my take to Gen Z is like, see, AI is not replacing ambitions, right? AI is just replacing the repetitive task. Okay. So it becomes all the more for the Generation Z saying that how you are completely equipped with the technology. And I personally feel, Nikhil, that it is very easy for them as well, right? Because if you look at this generation, their technology exposure is immense. Okay. Just that, they should continue to work towards how they leverage their technology and how they use it in their day-to-day work on a daily basis, so that the impact becomes very, very powerful. While there will be degrees in terms of which is very, very important, which will be very, very foundational for them, but their constant upgradation of the skills, this is the new technology, that would be important, critical when they look at their career growth. Okay. And I would say that, apart from the technical skills and the technology, what the generations need to look at is lot of cognitive skills, lot of practical skills. I think that will also, because technology will be there to help you in the new era, right? But what are your problem solving skills? What are your, critical thinking? What is your team collaboration? What is your emotional intelligence? So if they kind of put those practical meta skills along with the digital confluency, I think it becomes very, very easy for them. And I think the future would be much better. See, we all have seen that there is an era whenever a new thing comes, be it an industrial revolution, be it an internet revolution, there will be a disruption, but eventually there are like lot of job getting rejected, right? I see the same thing for AI revolution also. The only thing is the speed of AI revolution is very, very fast. What must have taken 15, 20 years for an industrial revolution or 10 years for an internet revolution, AI revolution may bring in 2 to 3 years. Okay. But I do see overall it's a very, very positive thing for someone who is entering the workforce, as long as they continue to focus on their skills, and skill security becomes important more than a title or a job.
Yeah, so you touched upon the fact that, yeah, you do need to have a bouquet of skills. And perhaps, I guess the follow up question would be, are we narrowing ourselves too short to just think about just the skills in the process, overlooking something that is normally taught in the college by way of other functional areas, if you think about the soft skills and so on. So where do you stand on this debate about, is the degree still relevant, or is skill um, kind of can make us too narrow focus?
I would say both are like the two sides of a coin, the way I see it. It's a very, very layman way of saying, because degrees are important. What does degree do? It talks about your consistency, your discipline, your foundational knowledge, your exposure in the past 15, 16 years, right? But having said that, I would say degree won't be enough. So they won't be enough for you to give you a very strong career trajectory. If you kind of complement your degree with a strong skill set, and the skill set can be in the area of cognitive, with the area of knowing your digital AI well, that kind of becomes a very good combination. Because a degree or a title, like if you see past, in the past, how we used to look at, whenever we used to look at organization, we used to look at saying the corporate brand. That organization also used to come to big campuses and say that, okay, these are the big campuses. I'll go and recruit people. I'll get some MBA marketing. I'll get some HR marketing. But nowadays, even for organizations, that has shifted. When they look at an MBA marketing, I'll give you an example. They're not just looking at the degree. They're looking at, okay, do you have the product thinking? Do you have the right agile execution? Do you do data interpretation and analytics well? Okay, are you good in cross-functional team collaboration? So you can understand, right, the shift which is happening, saying, okay, you are just a marketing MBA. So do you have XYZ skills? And some of these skills can be used across roles, not necessarily as an MBA marketing. So I think my entire input to this Generation Z would be that look at degree as a foundation, but look at your overall skill building as a thing which will kind of help you compound in future. Degree becomes an entry gate, but it is the skill which you takes high in the organization, and that's how even organization looking at. Take example of like a Google or an IBM or like a Microsoft Leap. They have this one of this very, very famous program where even before employees complete their degree, they call it, they kind of hire them and train them. On what basis they're hiring? They're just hiring lot based on a lot of practical and cognitive skills, right? And then they start training. So I think the way the organizations are focusing, they're giving more importance to the skill. Having said that, degree is very, very foundational.
So, what does a skill based organization look like, Manisha? And can you give examples of companies which are solely making skills sort of supersede over degrees? What's been your experience?
Mhm. So, Nikhil, before answering what a skill based organization looks like, maybe I'll take a step back, okay, so that, our Generation Z understands why even organization moving to a skill based organization, right? Okay, what is the trigger for them? Because if you look at from an organization perspective, okay, today the business strategies are changing rapidly in this AI revolution. And if you're sticking to your old job description or old titles, they're becoming outdated very fast. And every time a business strategy changes, they need to equally understand, okay, where is my capability? Who will be able to execute? Okay? That's why organizations have started moving to understanding capability more rather than saying, okay, these are the jobs and these are the titles. Okay, that is number one. They are just trying to kind of give you a picture what is the genesis of skill-based organization itself. Okay, so what is the changing scenario? Okay. The second thing is that today organizations struggle in terms of the talent visibility. Okay. They don't know like what all is visible within the organization. And so that's the reason, one of the things what organizations are trying to do, they are trying to map their requirement in terms of the skills and then trying to assess what is the capability which is lying in the organization. So it's otherwise, if you see in the past generation, the visibility was only when the manager was talking, saying that, okay, I have this talent in my team or I have this talent in the department. But by mapping all your employees vis a vis the skill required, at a overall meta organizational level, you get a very good visibility. And that helps the organization to deploy talent faster. Because today, assume a business strategy is changing and you want to go to the market to hire, okay? Your hiring time will be very high. There's a cost associated to that. Vis-a-vis you kind of knowing the talent internally and you know that the person is good in 80% of things, it's just a 20% training required. We quickly upskill and redeploy. Okay, so I think that's another thing, which is becoming very important for the organization. And the third thing, what is becoming the trigger for the skill-based organization, I will take it from an employee lens. And this is very much relevant for the Generation Z because nowadays everyone wants visibility, transparent, and fairness in their growth, right? Gone are the days where your promotions will be on the manager bias or the visibility which a manager would, right? Or saying that, okay, you are in the right team. But now, with by moving to a skill based organization, what is happening? Employees are also very clear. Okay, I'm in this job. These are the skill required in this job. If I want to go to the next job, this is the delta in the skill. This is what I need to focus. So your entire growth pathways are becoming very visible. Your growths are becoming very measurable, I would say. That kind of brings in transparency in the organization. And lot of the current generation is kind of valuing that because that's how their thought process is, right? They don't want a closed black box system. They want a very, very transparent open system. So these things are becoming a trigger for creating a skill based organization. Okay. Now, yeah.
On that one, when you say so, are you referring just when we say skill based because so much of technology penetration has happened at the workplace with the tools and automation happening? Um, so is the focus more there as opposed to, let's say, the other relevant skills, which perhaps one has to build over their career? So are the
Mhm.
companies emphasizing more of the technical competence versus maybe the managerial competence? Because it seems that that comes only with experience, right? So what are
Mhm.
skill-based companies, or what do you see? Where does that stand in the overall bouquet of the skills, if that makes sense?
Mhm. I would say companies are focusing on everything, okay, not just technical competency, because a technical competence is only a part what will help you to deliver. So, like, if I start, like, organizations are focusing on meta skills a lot. When I say meta skills, these are the skills which will be applied across roles in the organization. Okay. And this can be things like your, a problem solving or a critical thinking or a product thinking, or it can be a team collaboration and EI, emotional intelligence, which I talked about. Something which is like, or maybe a customer orientation, right? Something which is valid all across. So they're giving a lot of importance to the meta skills. The lot giving, then the second comes, and I'm not talking in terms of the order of priority. I'm just talking about, the different kind of skills. Technical skills definitely becomes important because that's how you would be performing your core work, right? So that definitely depends upon the role you're playing, the technical skills comes in. Functional behavioral skills are equally important, right? In today's world, where, a lot of organizations are not looking at just physical workforce, they're looking at hybrid virtual workforce also. Your soft skill and how you work across the entire talent ecosystem becomes very important. And then fourth are the leadership ones, right? Like especially if you're in a manager role, what are your people management skills? Or if you're like a senior executive, what are the leadership skills we're exhibiting? So the way I see it, organization kind of focuses in totality. Just that by skill-based organization, they're trying to make it more or more clearer in terms of that if you're doing this X job, okay, what are the meta, what are the technical, whatever behavioral, whatever skills are required. And some of the advanced organizations are also going up to defining proficiency levels. Saying, if I am a software engineer one, I would require XYZ skills, but at what proficiency level? If I'm a software engineer two, I would need XYZ skills, but at what proficiency level? So this kind of gives a lot of but having said that, I would say today organizations are in that maturity path. Not everyone is very, very mature. Some organizations have started thinking, some are midway, and some maybe, a bit matured in the overall talent value chain.
So, would you say, Manisha, one question here, just as a the devil's advocate, perhaps the relevancy of skills was always there. Has the focus now shifted to say that we will look at skills more than the degrees? In other words, if you got two employees, right? Skills will kind of be more looked at versus the degree. But in the past, right, the skills were always relevant. If I need to be a software engineer, I do need to know the languages. I do need to have my technical skills. And if I need to manage a team of programmers, I need to have my soft skills, the project management skills, right? So it at one level, can one argue that that hasn't changed, but it just seems that there is more of an emphasis there on the skills versus maybe a generalized degree. Is the organization now putting the degree maybe not as relevant as opposed to the skills? So if you have two graduates, one with a degree and the skills, and maybe another one who doesn't have the degree but has more slightly relevant pointed skills, the organization will prefer this point person B. Is that what you're seeing? Is that what you're saying?
I would say, yeah, a part of it is correct, Nikhil. Like skill was always there. It was not that, skill was never there. But from an organization perspective, I would say not degree. If I look at it as an organization, their focus was more on the job title, right? So degree was just an entry, right? As a degree, you enter the organization and assume you're called a graduate engineer trainee or you're called a management trainee, whatever. This is your degree, okay? But what organizations were focusing basis the degree was more on the title, saying, okay, but now, but the skills are always there because that's something which you need to perform your job, right? But now what is happening, Nikhil, I would say skill is becoming the pivot, okay? And when I say it is becoming the pivot for an organization, which means that you are also kind of trying to prepare your talent processes in and around the skill. Like, for example, I know as a part of my interaction with multiple organizations that today they're integrating skills very powerfully in their performance management system, right? So previously it was more of a qualitative feedback which was coming, but now saying that, okay, as a part of performance management, I'll also evaluate you on the skills. They becoming an integral part of your career development. Organizations are having project marketplace or a mentor marketplace, a talent marketplace, right? With the organizations are bringing in, where they're focusing a lot on skills. Like, for example, HP is one of the organization, okay, where they have created, because everyone has started creating internal gig marketplace. We're saying that now it is no more manager's responsibility, saying that, okay, you work on this project and that's how you will grow. They're floating projects. They're also flashing the skills which is required for the project. Employees are applying and employees are kind of seeing growth, through that. So I would say while skills were always there, it was more of how it gets integrated in your every process and value system and assessment system so that the reinforcement is better, the visibility is better, and the actions are driven based on skills. So that is one from an organization perspective. But if you see it from an employee perspective, yes, while in the past, a generation Z or any other generation was focusing purely getting degree, But now the realization is very clear that if I just focus on getting marks, this degree will not help me to get the best of the opportunity, because there are a lot of other practical skills what the organization will look at. And even if I get into an organization by any chance, this will not help me to rise high, because so now organizations are not just looking at ladders, they're looking at skill journeys to decide who takes the next bigger role. So that's the shift, I would say, which is happening in the current ecosystem.
So, Manisha, which are some of the companies which have kind of made a skill-based way of getting talent versus just a traditional way of hiring? Can you give us some examples?
Mhm. I can take some example, and in fact, one of the biggest, like TCS, right? It's one of the biggest IT services organization and very progressive in terms of the they're delivering the IT services and product. They previously they used to focus primarily on saying that whenever they were like selecting any talent, right? It was more on, okay, what is your tenure? What is your experience? What projects you have done in the past? They have kind of brought in the entire system of talent cloud. Okay, which means that whatever projects, whatever work is getting done, okay, that is getting mapped to the skill required. Okay, and employees are having full visibility of their current skill as well as the requirement of the new project, and the mapping is happening based on skills. Okay, so that is one very very good example saying that how organizations moving and creating a talent cloud. There was one organization, I would not be able to name it. It's a Fortune 50 telecom organization. You know what they did? They had around 75,000 employees, okay? And they mapped skill set of all the 75,000 employees. And one big realization, mapping was still fine. One big realization happened after the mapping that 25% there was an increase in their internal mobility. And that's a big one, right? Because today, as I said, hiring is very, very expensive. Like hiring for a new hire to become productive also takes a lot of time, right? But it increased 25% of internal mobility because now employees knew very clearly that this is my current skill set. And if I want to apply in this job, this is what I need to acquire as a skill set. So the targeted learning, okay, became very, very very evident within the employees, and that kind of helped them get a lot of new opportunities internally. So that's a second example, I would say. We are working very closely with one online retail giant, and this we are personally working, Nikhil, where they're kind of implementing a complete talent marketplace. Okay, and when I say implementing a talent marketplace, it is more of saying that where there would be a LinkedIn kind of a profile which will create within the organization itself. Like the way you have a LinkedIn outside, it's a LinkedIn kind of a profile creates within the organization. There will be skill assessment done. Employee will have clear visibility in terms of what skills they have. There will be AI based learning path. AI will also help you saying that, okay, these are the projects which is in the project marketplace. You can, work on these projects to further grow. AI will also tell you that, okay, if you have this skills lacking, there's a mentor marketplace, there's a pool of mentor. You can go and, talk to any of the mentor. So organizations are definitely started thinking on those lines, saying that how do I bring in the entire ecosystem together and make skill as their pivot? Yeah. And you have multiple examples. I know that the paucity of time, I've just
Sure.
quoted few,
No,
but
fantastic. I think this was very helpful to kind of understand how companies are reframing and re-looking at how talent was always viewed. So that's very helpful. And the example of 75,000 employees versus mapping the skill set. So it helps not only with talent fungibility, but just really kind of seeing that, okay, what is in the future, what's coming up in the pipeline, and how do you utilize that talent, right? And so let's talk now, Manisha, just as a couple of things more, just as a way to kind of take this forward. If you are an employer, if you are a hiring manager or a person trying to look for young talent, what message would you give to the Gen Z? That's the first question. And the second would be, of course, if you are a Gen Z who is now entering a workplace or a work, um, the professional space at a time where so much of technology is now taking over, the routine tasks, etc. What advice would you have for them as well, where skills are becoming more relevant? So one from the employer's perspective, one from the Gen Z's perspective.
okay. So I think from an employee perspective, definitely employer wants it all. Okay, that's a reality, right? So they want best of both the worlds. So I would say that, my when I am a manager, I would definitely look at a very strong background, because when it comes to in terms of the good knowledge and the good degree, it also talks about how you have grown through the system and the consistency. It's not that about someone doing well in 1 year. So your degree definitely becomes one of the foundation part. But while, as I told you before also, Nikhil, right? While degree can become your foundation, but how you kind of survive within the organization is all about your attitude. Okay. So I think as a manager, as a leader, those kind of practical skills will become very, very important. Where in terms of, that, how you're able to work with a larger team. Because it's a common saying that common sense is not common, right? And that's what even today, like even in the past also when I've hired, even today when I am hiring, I always look at people who are very high on positive attitude, very high on common sense, very high on not even fighting problems but fighting solutions. They will have people who says this is a problem, but there will be another group who will say, I know this is a problem, but can we look at like this to solve them? So and what are these? These are all your cognitive and meta skills, right? Okay, problem solving attitude, your critical thinking, your integrated thinking, say how we are putting all the dots together and delivering a solution. So as a manager, I think, the focus is that while I'm looking at degree as a foundation, but also some of the skills becomes very, very relevant, and your learnability, because that is very important. Because what happens, Nikhil, it's not about what you have today. Like the way the world is changing, okay? The skills, you may have very, very relevant skills today, but you will realize after 6 months they're no more relevant. So your the agility in learning new skills becomes also very, very important, that how you're continuously keeping yourself updated. I think if an employee has those kind of practical orientation, I think that, as an organizations, I'm sure, they would be, and lot of when the organizations are doing skill-based hiring, like be it a Google, be it an IBM, be it Accenture, who are moving towards skill-based hiring or already deployed skill-based hiring, a lot of this becomes part of those quick work. So I think that's how an employer looks at. If I look at from an employee's perspective, I think I would say there is definitely an overlap. But as I said, that don't just focus on getting the degree, but parallelly, and you can keep on getting practical skills. And how do you get? The question may be that how do I get a practical skills? You get maximum when you are involved in practical projects. Like even when you're in a college, right? Assume someone is doing a engineering, a P Tech. Even when you're in the college, focus more and more doing maybe internships with organizations, right? Try to see that how you are practically involved. And it's not necessary you have to do internships with the corporate organizations. You can work across. There can be a lot of social contribution an employee can do, right, during while they're earning. So that, the learning becomes more practical, and then they kind of continue to acquire skills. So that's what I would say, that, they should continue to focus on balancing their degree, as well as acquiring new practical skills, which will help them and give a better opportunity in the future.
Fantastic. So very helpful, Manisha. Again, as always, I think you've simplified, sort of demystified, the whole tension that people kind of, if there is a doubt in a young person's mind about degree versus the skill, I think the degree does have a relevance, as you rightly said. It's foundation, and every single one of us, I mean, whether from the past generation to now, there's a good merit in that. But perhaps increasingly, just with the nature of problems changing so fast and so rapidly, and so much infusion of technology, I think the skill story absolutely positively makes sense. And then you've highlighted what companies are doing, what does it mean for the employer, as well as what does it mean for the employee. Now, I do want to give you also, and kind of quickly talk about, you mentioned at the very beginning, from your last innings is a very splendid 2 decades and more career as a very senior colleague in the HR space, and now you've kind of moved into entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit about the tool that you're building, as this is very relevant to the conversation we're having. So perhaps you can take a couple of minutes to talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's very relevant in terms of what we're saying, because as I said, it's one of our flagship products. We call it Mosaics. And it is a skill transformation engine, a real-time skill transformation engine. Because Nikhil, more and more we are talking to the organization, and this is where they are struggling, that their CEO comes with a business strategy and organization is not agile enough to transfer that business strategy into action. And what we are building in terms of our tool is where, as an organization, you have your business strategy. Coming from the business strategy, you can develop skill frameworks. Okay, so you would have roles in the organization. You would be able to use your business strategy as well as AI. And we have created our own LLM. Okay, so you would be able to create skill framework. You will be able to assess the skills, of the employees. Employee can self-assessment. There would be manager assessment. You can do a 360 assessment. And based on that, basis the assessment output, you would also be coming up with a very, system-driven curated learning path. As an employee, you can always get it. But there will be system-driven curated learning path. There would be development plans, and it is also integrated to the overall project day or project as a mentor marketplace. So, from an organization perspective, and this is exactly the story of what, as a skill based organization, they're moving to. But the challenge is that while there is a lot of thought process, but a lot of time organizations do not have the platform to implement it, right? And some of these thought processes, if you don't have a tool as an enabler, system as an enabler, it does not become very, very impactful, right? So that's what we are focusing. And from an employee perspective, it kind of gives them a lot of visibility, because while organizations are creating this framework, they're also having a talent visibility. They're seeing talent metrics, capability metrics. They're doing succession planning. But I, as an employee, what I get to see is like where I am, where do I stand, where do I want to go. So I'll have career options, and and what I need to build to go there. So I think that transparency also helps an employee. So we are trying to kind of manage for the entire workforce, be it a leader of the organization or be an employee of an organization, that how our tool kind of help them to drive transformation.
So very fabulous. This is in line with our conversation, and I think you're building something which is, I think, extremely useful for every single one of the companies who are, looking at talent, and how do you kind of think about how talent will be relooked at, right, going forward. Manisha, where can people find you? So, what are some of the coordinates? Perhaps if you have a website or any places where people can look you up, please share that as well.
Sure, sure. And maybe as a part of the podcast release, Nikhil, I'll share those coordinates. So if someone who is interested as a Gen Z, if they want to understand what are the future options they would have, or as an organization, they would want to be interested, see how they do build a skill-based organization, would be happy to assist them and help them in their transformation journey.
Fantastic. So there you have it, friends. Another fabulous conversation with Manisha Goel. She brings real on-ground insights and something today which I thought is so very relevant, as you mentioned, Manisha. I have a young son who's also in the job market, and these are first-hand experiencing some of what we discussed. That the skills are so much more relevant versus there's a value of degree. So do check it out. I urge all our Gen Z listeners to kind of look at the relevance of skills and also kind of learnability. I think that is such an important point for not just the Gen Z, for every single one of us. And also the hiring people to say that, okay, what does it mean? How do you look at talent? So another great conversation. Thank you, Manisha, as always. I'm deeply grateful. I look forward to meeting you in person in one of my trips in Bangalore. And till then, take care and thank you once again.
Thanks so much, Nikhil, and it's always pleasure connecting. Hope we get more chance to, connect in future as well. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.